as we were moving around the country, he would network and find people that would give us opportunities. So I think the first coolest one I remember was we were living in Houston, and he got us to ride in the Goodyear Blimp, which I haven't met a whole lot of people that have gotten to do that.
Hello and welcome to the Business Aviation podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. Today we get a chance to talk to one of our own team members, Lin Harris. Stay tuned and she'll tell us all about her lifelong love of aviation. This podcast is produced by Business Aviation Collective and sponsored by LD Aviation. Hi, Lin.
Hi, Lindsay.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I am so excited to talk to you because you've been with our team now for, a little over 4 months, I think. And you've been a wonderful addition to our team. I'm kind of curious, how did you even get interested in aviation?
Okay, well, that started in childhood. So that was my dad. My dad is a telephone guy, corporate guy, but always wanted to fly planes and just never had the time because he was, busy providing. So he and I had this common interest. So he started taking me to all these air shows. And then because we moved so often, we got to go to different air shows in different places. And the more I got excited, the more he encouraged me. So as we were moving around the country, he would network and find people that would give us opportunities. So I think the first coolest one I remember was we were living in Houston, and he got us to ride in the Goodyear Blimp, which I haven't met a whole lot of people that have gotten to do that. Once you've got a dad that does these things, and the next one was we lived in New Jersey, and he got me in a Stearman, and we went around the Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
And it's been thing after thing like that. As I got older, we got in P51 Mustangs and got to do that ride in Florida. So I have had parents that have encouraged me and backed me up all the way through this, and I've gotten to do some pretty cool experiences, including my jump into corporate aviation. My dad was at that point had privileges on the corporate aircraft. And so I would get to fly with him, or I get to go talk to the director of aviation and ask him, how does somebody get to do what you do? And so I had lots of neat experiences through him and through his excitement. And when I got my license first, and then he got his license when he retired at 53.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh, I want to hear more about the Goodyear Blimp, because you're right. I don't think I've met anybody who has been able to ride. What was that like?
It was a long time ago, so I'll have to go back into my brain as a freshman in high school, I think is when that was. But so cool, so slow, so big. So, to watch them catch it and launch it off. I mean, I will never forget what that looked like and felt like. That was a pretty awesome experience.
That is so cool. Okay, so now you said you got your license first and then your dad. So tell me more about that. Did you guys ever study together?
No, because there were several years different. So I was already long and done and got my ratings by the time he did that. But no, it started out where when we were living in New Jersey and I had that first flight, he said, do you want to go take lessons? So I did for a little while, and then we moved to St. Louis, and that ended up going into, I took a few lessons in St. Louis, but the big flood hits back, in the 90s, and my airport got shut down and all this stuff. So then I started again and ended up accidentally last minute decision right before I was due to go to college, decided to go to an aviation college. Before that, I was going to be a music major and a religion minor, and I was good. Already had my school picked out. This was a last minute. I went and toured the school that we have locally here in St. Louis and loved it. Came home and said, Mom and Dad, this is what I'm going to do. And they went, okay. So
wonderful.
The rest is history. And in college, I got a lot of neat experiences, and then came home and said, I want to fly aerobatics. And they went, okay. So they, like I said, encouraged me the whole way through. So I've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff in a really short period of time.
Cool. So aerobatics, I've only gotten to do one flight aerobatics, but it was so cool. Now, that was a long time ago. I feel like I might puke if I were to do that right now. But how did that, where did that go? Like, what did you fly? What did you do for that?
It was It wasn't a lot of lessons because I was an adult at this point. Now I'm gonna have to start paying for my own lessons, very soon. So it was towards the end of my college experience, and it was just a top RIA. I think I had about 10 hours in it and loved it. That was my favorite kind of flying, and I wanted to be the next Patty Wagstaff. And then, the reality hit that life and marriage and kids. But yeah, and they also, because of that experience and because I was one of 12 women at the school, I think people really just we really networked, and they let me take the school aircraft to all these air shows and got to fly into Oshkosh when I was like all of probably 20 years old. And so that, I had a little fun at a younger age.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So St. Louis University, you're saying there were 12 women in your group?
So back then, it was called Parks College of St. Louis University. So St. Louis University was our university, but we had a small aviation campus in Goodyear, Illinois, so just across the river, and it was real close to downtown Parks, St. Louis Airport. So we actually all lived down there. It was an old World War II campus. It was a military training area and so there was a ton of history. Lots of, big superstars in aviation have walked that campus, and we had our hangars, and we had 2 dormitories, 300 men, 12 women, and
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So a pioneer, definitely. I mean, 12 women out of 300. That's awesome.
It was fun. It was good.
All right. So then from there, where did you go? You said kids, and you got married, and
so I married somebody from Parks College, right out of college, and he also was a pilot, had more hours than me, so he was moving a little bit faster than I was in the aviation. So we decided he would fly, and not long after that, I did move with him. So he flew for Comair, and I worked on the ground for Comair. And so we did that in Florida, in Sanford, Florida for me, or Orlando for him. And I worked back then they had all these aviation schools, Comair, where they would kind of train them there. Then you'd flight instruct there, and then you would step up and fly for Comair, which at the time was a Delta connection. So it was all connected with Delta.
Okay.
So
there were like pathways that you would start on one side and then funnel right up into the majors after a while.
Right. Okay. And there's a lot of schools that are still like that now. But yeah, so I worked in that end, and he was flying, and then we eventually continued moving with his job.
Okay. All right. And you said you worked for Comair. So you worked on the ground?
I did. So I worked for their school. And my title was job placement officer. So these guys would come in, and we would work with them. The hope was they would be flight instructors for us. But my job was to make connections with other places for them to go if that needed to happen. If they needed to go back home and work, I would do that. They also had me dealing with their housing as well. So I was the one that made sure they had a place to, I took care of all their needs that they needed as far as housing, transportation, that kind of thing, when they were there with us at Sanford for a few years.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I'm just looking at your background. And so Comair was until 1998. And then like for many of us, I'm guessing some kids were involved. It looks like you might have taken a bit of a break.
Well, I took a bit of a break. So I stayed at home with my kids. Like I said, my husband was a pilot, so he was gone a lot. So I was the one that primarily stayed home with them. And I still have one at home right now, but since he's 18 and going to college next year, I'm able to do what I do now.
That's awesome. How about you tell everybody, what are you doing now for us? I mean, I know what you do, which is awesome, but tell us what you do for LD Aviation currently.
I am a remote scheduler for aviation. So I like to say I'm a full service concierge to allow the pilots to just get in the plane and fly, and I do everything else. That's the hope. That's the goal. But yeah, I schedule remotely from home, which has been great. It's allowed me a lot of freedom, a lot of flexibility, so I can still make my son's water polo games, or if, we travel to the lake for the weekend, I can pick up the computer and still get my job done.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really think that aviation, especially the scheduling section of it, is a job that completely can be done remotely. And as I'm sure everybody listening to this knows, this is a 24/7 type of job. So the ability to turn off and on from wherever you're at is paramount to a successful scheduling team. Well, we appreciate everything that you do here. How about, let's talk about what parts do you like the best, maybe out of aviation? Not so much LD aviation type of stuff, but is there a piece of aviation that you just still really love? Is it flying? Would you like to go back to flying? Do you want to more air shows?
Yes and yes, all of it. I love the language. I love being around this community of people. So yes, I love talking airplanes. I love knowing what they like to fly. And I still do fly. I just do it as a hobby. My family has a small plane. That's what's gotten our kids all into it. So we travel that way with a small plane. And I live 5 miles from the airport where it is. But yes, I also love this side of it too, because I'm never bored. There's always a challenge. There's always something fun to figure out. I love that aspect of it. I don't like to sit still. I don't like to be bored. So this part of it has been fun because every day is different, not a boring day.
No, right? It's always something. Some of the stuff that comes through, you're not really sure how, who even came up with those questions, but they do almost always come into scheduling, and it's our job to figure out how to fix it or accommodate it. Yep. So now you said, so you have a whole aviation family. So it sounds like your husband flies, kids.
Everybody has some part of it. So I have 3 children. My oldest one just turned 24. I hope I'm getting that right. 24. And he's a pilot for a living. My husband is a corporate pilot for a living. My daughter in the middle she's in animation. She's in computer graphics, but she goes to Purdue, which has an aviation school that's housed in the same school as her. And she still speaks the language like the rest of us. Most of her artwork, there's going to be a little airplane in there somewhere. She's still very much in it as much as the rest of us. And my youngest one got his private pilot's license last year and wants to pursue it in college. So we accidentally, with no intent, built this family that we connect somehow through aviation.
That is so cool. Okay, so I think you would be a really great person to be able to give some advice to either other young people that want to get into aviation or other maybe parents who want to help their kids into aviation. So what have you learned along the way? Are there any good, I don't know, like internships or suggestions that people who want to get into flying or any type of aviation degree that has worked for you guys?
Mainly just networking is networking. Just go out there, sample, find somebody who's doing what you want to do and ask them, how did you get here? Don't be afraid to talk to people that own a plane, fly a plane for a living. Ask them about it. I have found that everyone in this industry wants to get more people involved. We're excited about it. We joined this because we had a passion for it. And so that we do, our family does a lot of that. Like they even asked me to come to school. Like there's a local high school, a girls' high school here that my daughter graduated from, and they're really pushing STEM with the women. And so they'll bring me in and we'll just sit there and chat about what scholarships do you think you should look at? Or have you heard of Women in Aviation or checked into your local EAA chapter? Just get out there and ask people. And if we don't know, we'll forward it to somebody else who knows. But I would say just talk and network and just kind of get out there like I did. I mean, at 16, I just went to the flight department and talked to the director of aviation and just said, tell me what to do. Do I need a college degree? Which college should I go to? Does it matter which college? And just kind of, and with the internet now, there's so many ways we can network with each other, get on a social media platform that has people in your local area there into it. And that's where I've gotten a lot of information as well. So just talk and meet people.
All right. Yeah, I love that networking. That's huge. It's really huge. And you're right. Everybody loves aviation. We're all in this industry on purpose. Well, I should say on purpose. We stay in the industry on purpose. Mm-hmm. We may not come into it on purpose, but we stay here on purpose. And why in the middle of the night when we're working, we're like, well, I'm not sure why I'm in the industry sometimes, but that's okay. I think that's great. So I will put on, if you're listening to this podcast, look down below in the notes, and we're going to go ahead and we'll put in some links to Women in Aviation, even the Young Eagles program. I'm not sure if you have one by you, Lynn, but we have a Young Eagles program around. That's great for the littler kids. Lots of opportunities out there and scholarships. In fact, I was just looking the other day, there's a group called the University Aviation Association. It's the UAA, and they publish hard copy books and websites of all of the different schools out there that have some sort of aviation degree attached to them. They actually also have a whole edition of scholarships. So if you want to go into aviation and you check out the University Aviation Association, you can check out their scholarship guide too. And it has 75 or 80 pages of scholarships that are out there. There's money out there to keep advancing. Very cool. Well, I think that's really cool that you guys have really built a family on aviation, and you've made 2.5 kids kind of that are in aviation directly. That's wonderful. Good inspiration. Let's see. You were talking about going into the community and talking to the high school as well. I think that is really cool. Were you just kind of in contact with them because your daughter graduated there? And I ask this because I'm wondering if those of us who are listening to the podcast, how do we give back to the community? How could we find an opportunity like that?
Yeah, exactly. Because it was my daughter's school went there, and they have somebody that's doing that. They're trying to connect the community with these students that are interested in things. So at first I was super nervous to do it because I have been at home for a long time. But the information I do have is I have, through my children, seen a lot of aviation schools and looked for a lot of scholarships and a lot of avenues. So I'm very fluent in which schools have what programs and what they offer and who has what aircraft and that sort of thing. So we would just go and have this conversation. And I realized I did have something I could contribute, even though I'm not directly, at the time, not directly flying and getting paid for it. But then we could connect them to my son, who did internships he did an internship with Republic Airways, Airlines. And that's another good avenue. So we could talk about that. So yeah, definitely that is a good way. Or just, here we have something called Wings of Hope. You can just go volunteer, or there are different ways to get involved. But I would say definitely reach out to the younger group. I've got a CFI, a friend of my son's, who's a female CFI. She went to the local high school and got several of these girls excited, just at the possibility of being able to fly, or, so many people don't know you could do that in college, or women sometimes don't think of it as far as a good career. So it got a lot of young people inspired. So I would say certainly there is definitely a place for you.
That's great. That's really cool. I know I live in a very small town, and so aviation is not a big thing. And many of the kids here don't have any information, just really haven't been exposed to aviation, especially not business aviation. So I'm betting that a lot of us live in similar types of communities. And yeah, you could just call them up and talk to them and see if maybe, you could help out somewhere. So very inspirational, Lynn. That's awesome. So great that you're giving back to the young kids and the community and all of your technical skills too. That is very impressive. Having gotten your pilot license was not as easy. Not that I'm saying it's easy now, but being a woman a few years ago, getting your pilot license is not the same as it is now. And it's not the same as being a man getting it. So I'm sure you had to persevere through a few things that perhaps other people didn't. That's pretty great as well. If anybody listening to the podcast wants to check out and reach out to Lynn and maybe ask her some more questions about her experience along the way, check her out. Her name is Lin Harris. She is on LinkedIn, so reach out and friend her. Lynn, thank you so much for talking with us today. It's been really great hearing your story and definitely inspirational.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Well, we'll chat with you again. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.